For millions of years, the Megalodon, a 60-foot behemoth powerful enough to crunch whales, ruled the ancient seas. While thought extinct, inexplicable evidence suggests this apex predator may still lurk below, responsible for horrifying modern maritime attacks. Prepare to be permanently terrified of the ocean.
The TikTok shark. In May of last year, someone on TikTok called Alex Albrecht, who is a marine biodiversity student as well as a musician, shared a video on the app that had people seriously shocked. The TikTok shows a massive shark lurking around the ship that Alex was on, which is said to have just been off of the coast of Massachusetts at the time. The ship was full of research students when this massive shark made its appearance, many of which either screamed or had some sort of expletive to say in response. Another TikTok user asked in the comments if the shark in the video is a megalodon, considering how absolutely huge this thing was. Was this an actual megalodon? Likely not, but hey, I'm not the marine life student here, so who am I to say? In our number 9 spot today, we have the Cray Fisherman. David Stead is an Australian naturalist, and in his book titled Sharks and Rays of the Australian Seas, he details an encounter with a shark that some have taken to believe is the legendary Megalodon herself. Apparently this incident happened in 1981 to a group of Cray fishermen that David spoke with. These fishermen were absolutely terrified of a shark they saw in their fishing grounds, which were just off of Broughton Island. They were so scared, in fact, that they refused to return to the fishing spot for days. All the men agreed that the shark was monstrous and that it was most definitely a shark, not a whale. The men explained that they had never seen a shark of that size before, and considering how they were all seasoned fishermen who had all had their fair share of encounters with sharks, whales, and all of the terrifying things that the ocean has to offer, how frightened they were really did leave quite the impression. In our number 8 spot today, we have 2 specimens. This story comes from all the way back in 1869 when an Irish scientist headed out on an expedition to Seychelles. It is said that he went there to study fish, but man, he was not prepared for the specimens he would go on to study. It is said that he found one that was over 15 meters, which is already a whopping almost 50 feet, but the other one really took the cake. The second specimen it is said that he found was alleged to have been 23 meters long, which is a massive 75 feet. Since this was so long ago, there wasn't any official documentation of it, but if there had been, the second one would hold the record for being the largest ever recorded. That is absolutely wild. Seeing it is one thing, but imagine being able to actually study it. In our number 7 spot today, we have the sailors. This gigantic shark sighting is said to have taken place in the 1960s just off of the edge of Australia's Great Barrier Reef. According to author B.C. Cartmel in his book Let's Go Fossil Shark Tooth Hunting, the sailors involved in this sighting initially refused to talk about it because of the fear of being teased for being afraid of what they had seen. After some time, however, they began to speak about the incident. They explained that while on board their 85-foot ship, they needed to weigh anchor in order to conduct some engine repairs. While this was ongoing, the crew became absolutely shocked when they saw the biggest shark they had ever seen slowly swimming past their completely stuck ship. Just like the last one, all the men agreed that they were not mistaking a whale and that it was indeed a shark. They also said that this shark was so large it was rivaling the boat in size. That is absolutely massive. Whether it really was a megalodon or not, whatever shark they saw that day certainly wasn't the average size. In our number 6 spot today, we have the battle scar. This story is a little different than the others on today's list, and it started with the sighting of a great white shark. This 15-foot long shark was spotted swimming just off of Isla Guadalupe in Mexico, but what was so striking about this great white in particular was the absolutely savage wound it had on its side. This huge bite mark had people speculating as to what in the world could have caused it. I mean, there aren't very many predators to great whites, so it's a pretty rare occasion to see such a huge bite mark right on the side of one, and people were doubting whether or not another shark would have done this to one of its own species. There definitely are reasons for why this could have been an attack from another shark, but of course people took this as a possible sign that maybe there's something bigger lurking in the waters. If the megalodon somehow isn't actually extinct and just this manages to evade any sort of confirmation of its existence, it certainly would need a ton of food to survive, which makes big fish like great whites a perfect snack. The Megalodon is, however, one of the most powerful predators to have ever lived on our planet, so if this bite really was from a Megalodon, it's surprising that this great white made it out alive. In our number 5 spot today, we have a world record. Basking sharks are known for being one of the largest fish in the ocean, and that is exactly why the largest one ever recorded was definitely something to write home about. In 1851, in the Bay of Fundy, which sits between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia here in Canada, a basking shark was caught in a herring net. This shark was measured to be at least 40 feet long, which is astoundingly large, and it certainly confused those who had caught it at first. I can imagine that they likely also thought that they had some kind of living fossil caught up in their net, but nope, instead they just set a new world record. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Demon. There are many stories and alleged sightings of what is now referred to as the quote Black Demon of Cortez, which is said to be a massive black shark seen off of Mexico's Baja coast. One story in particular regarding this elusive shark comes from a fisherman named Eric Mack. He had reported that one day while sailing he felt his boat begin to rock, which immediately gave him the feeling that something was awry. Eric was even further startled when he explained that he saw a massive towering tail sticking at least 5 feet out of the water. The stories of this shark are so infamous that it was even the focus of an episode of a History Channel show called Monster Quest. Maybe if there's a part 2 of this video, we'll talk about some more of the sightings surrounding the Demon. In our number 3 spot today, we have Deep Blue. This shark is in fact not a Megalodon, but it definitely is a more modern contender. Deep Blue is the name of a great white shark who is most definitely one of the greatest ever recorded, at least in our lifetime. This colossal monster is the largest great white shark ever caught on camera by scientists. She is measured to be 20 feet long, 8 feet high, and about 2.5 tons, and while this isn't all that huge compared to her massive prehistoric cousin, it certainly is no small feat. Rumors of her existence have been spread since as far back as the 1990s, but it wasn't until 2014 that she was officially caught on camera and documented. Researchers at the time were in the midst of studying tiger sharks, but she made her grand appearance after scavenging some food from a sperm whale carcass nearby. In our number 2 spot today, we have Bigger Than the Boat. Zane Grey is a man who is a novelist, and he is definitely best known for his adventure novels, but it is also said that he was a deep sea angler, and it was during one of his fishing adventures that his Megalodon sighting came. In the novel, which is titled Megalodon, Fact or Fiction, writer Rick Emmer speaks of this incident, saying that Zane claimed to have seen, quote, one of the man-eating monsters of the South Pacific. It is said that whatever kind of shark he saw, it was a shark that was much longer than his boat, which was somewhere from 30 to 40 feet. He also said that this shark was yellow and green, and that it had a few white spots. Most notably, however, he said that the shark had a massive square head, and that it had, quote, immense pectoral fins. This is all to say that whether he saw a Megalodon or not, whatever he saw was not just a harmless great white shark. What do you guys think? Perhaps a Megalodon sighting, or just one of the tall, exciting tales told by Mr. Gray? In our number 1 spot today, we have the Mariana Trench sighting. A few years ago, a video began circulating the internet, and it shows a gigantic shark scouring the seafloor. People online quickly put a story to the video saying that allegedly this is a Megalodon that was caught on camera at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The creature is seen swimming over top of what is apparently an abandoned shark cage, and the video seems to be enough to have convinced many people. The video certainly is compelling, and whatever we see is most definitely terrifying to look at, but with my very limited knowledge of anything that lives in the sea, it's tough to say anything further. While some people swear that this is solid proof, others have brought up sharks that may have a similar appearance to the one seen in the video. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Zuiyo-Maru monster. This story is one that comes to us from 1977, and rather than an alive animal sighting, this one is actually this carcass that was found that we still aren't quite sure what it belongs to. The Zuiyo-Maru Carcass was one that was found by Japanese fishermen near New Zealand. Because it was so unique, it was taken to be analyzed, and while many have speculated that it was a basking shark, That has never been confirmed or proven. Considering the fact that it was definitely shark-like, but just not quite clear as to what exactly it was, is definitely interesting. In our number 9 spot today, we have the sea creature. Back in both 1817 as well as 1819, there was a sea creature that visited the coast of Massachusetts, and it was seen by hundreds of people, but no one has been able to identify what it could have been for sure. The creature was said to be around 3 feet in diameter and around 50 feet long, and it is said that it moved similarly to how a whale or a dolphin might. The first sighting of this creature was when some fishermen spotted it, but the real panic began as the creature started to show itself closer to shore. To this day, some people swear that this was some sort of real sea monster, and others believe it was just a case of mass hysteria. What do you think? In our number 8 spot today, we have the prehistoric monster. Back in 1959, a fisherman named Tex Geddes and his friend James Gavin were boating somewhere just off of the coast of Scotland. It is said that during their time out to sea, they encountered a sea monster that neither of them had seen before. They described its head as being sort of turtle-shaped, and that it was a, quote, hellish monster of prehistoric times, and said that it was breathing heavily through a, quote, large red gash of a mouth. Okay, not exactly a kind description, but definitely a bit of a terrifying one. I think it's important to bring up that we don't actually know what megalodons looked like. We have a sort of idea, but at the end of the day, we only have fossils, jaws, and spines, and that doesn't leave us that much to work with. While it isn't quite clear what these two men saw for sure, and it's likely that we'll never know, whatever it was definitely wasn't just your average sea creature. In our number 7 spot today, we have Dr. Gru. When we think of the tales of sea monsters and myths, we often think of the many serpent-like creatures that just may be lurking underneath the water. This is definitely a common theme, and in the 17th century there was a botanist who came up with a sort of explanation for these sea serpent sightings. It's important to note that this botanist was a very legitimate scientist who really worked to change basically everything we knew about plant anatomy, so when he came forth with this evidence and explanation, it rightfully caught people's attention. Basically, he had this specimen, which was a sample of skin that he said was from some sort of seal, but that it had a neck just as long as the rest of its body. Of course, this would explain a whole bunch of sea monster sightings, but in the end, the skin sample ended up completely disappearing, making any confirmation of the story or the animal's existence completely impossible. I know a megalodon isn't necessarily supposed to look like a seal with a long neck, but who's to say for sure that it doesn't? In our number 6 spot today, we have the Shipwreck. Back in 1909, the French steamer La Seine was out to sea when it collided with the British India steamer, the Onda. A shipwreck is never good, but this one was particularly bad as, in heavy fog, the French ship sank in just 2 minutes. This of course left people stranded in the water, and I mean, you can probably see where this is going. In the aftermath of this wreck, while waiting for the rescue, there were 101 people who lost their lives from shark attacks. That's a lot of people. That is either a lot of sharks or a very few large ones. I mean, none of us were there, so it's hard to say for sure, but whatever really happened here, it's an absolutely horrifying tragedy. In our number 5 spot today, we have the kayak encounter. Ida Parker and Kristen Orr were kayaking off of the coast of Plymouth in 2014 when they encountered a shark. This is truly a nightmare scenario, and it must have been absolutely terrifying. The pair, however, had actually set off with the intention of seeing a great white shark, and while it's likely that this is exactly what they encountered, they definitely did not expect what happened next. The two had heard of rumblings of a shark in the area that had swallowed a seal in one gulp, and this is what sparked their desire to head out on this journey. While out there, however, the shark began to attack their kayaks. In the end, both of them made it out alive, and when their kayaks were recovered, one was found with a huge bite mark in it. In our number 4 spot today, we have the oldest shark attack. Considering the fact that the megalodon is said to have been extinct somewhere over 2 million years ago, even evidence that seems ancient to us is a lot more recent than what our current understanding of their timeline here on Earth would suggest. That is exactly why the discovery of what is speculated to be the world's oldest evidence of a shark attack is very interesting. This discovery came by way of a 3,000-year-old human skeleton that is marked with different gashes and puncture wounds. It is said that because of the volume of wounds, it makes it slightly easier to tell the story of what happened. This is because while researchers first believed that perhaps the wounds were caused by metal weapons, this could not explain why there were so many in certain parts of the body. Another telltale sign is how this skeleton was discovered in Japan, which at the time of this person's life, there weren't really any metal weapons at that point in history in Japan, which ruled out this theory entirely. They were also able to rule out other terrestrial carnivores, and that's when they turned to marine life to look for some more answers. Because of the time it's been, we obviously don't know what creature was involved in this attack for sure, but with the mass amount of wounds found on the skeleton, it was likely to be something large and terrifying. In our number 3 spot today, we have snorkeling. Robert Pamperin and a friend, Gerald Lair, were snorkeling off of La Jolla Cave in California in 1959 when Robert was attacked by a shark. It is said to have all happened quite quickly, and Gerald was alerted to the distress when he heard Robert scream. Gerald turned and saw Robert unusually high in the water and his mask was missing. At this point, Gerald dove under, and this is when he realized exactly what was going on. There was a shark that had Robert in its mouth up to his waist. Unfortunately, there was not much Gerald could do to stand up to this absolutely massive shark that he described as larger than your average great white. Robert sadly did not survive the event, and by the time rescuers arrived, they were only able to locate one of his fins. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Jersey Shore. Back in 1916, during the summer season, there were 5 different shark attacks that occurred over the span of 10 days that ended up in the deaths of 4 people. This wasn't something that had been seen before in the area, which of course left people speculating as to why. There was a heat wave in the area during the time, which likely led to more people being out enjoying summertime sort of activities, and maybe this attracted the shark, but in the end, no one knows for sure because no one even knows what kind of shark is responsible for the attacks in the first place. Luckily, this didn't go on to become a continuous trend, and whatever shark this was went on its merry way, or perhaps found another food source, or whatever, but this series of attacks definitely kept the public on edge for the weeks and months surrounding. In our number 1 spot today, we have the USS Indianapolis. This is a story that has been considered the worst shark attack in history, which is definitely a horrific thing to think about. In 1945, the USS Indianapolis was an unescorted US warship that was sailing in the Pacific when it was struck by a Japanese torpedo. This had no problem tearing the ship in two, which meant that 900 sailors were now floating in the ocean waiting for rescue. Over the next 5 days, nearly 600 men lost their lives due to shark attacks. I said this about the other one that was similar to this, and I'll say it again. That's either a group of sharks or a very few large, very hungry ones. From the survivors' accounts of what happened over the course of those days, it seemed like an absolutely nightmare situation. This is exactly why this has gone on to be called one of the worst shark attacks in history.
At number 10 is the terrifying deep sea footage. Now, the degree to which you'll be impressed with this video depends on how you decide to define your scale. So let's be clear, beast depicted here in this footage is absolutely a shark and is absolutely real, with its very distinguishing gills and pectoral fins. The question is though, is this your run-of-the-mill great white? Or is it a megalodon? That all depends on the size of the fishing cage behind it. See, if we're to presume this to be a standard sized cage at about 10 feet, that would make the shark in front of it just shy of 30 feet wide. And since the shark is so enormous that we never get its entire body within the confines of the frame at once, we can make some estimates concerning the width to length ratio and determine that the shark here is at least 60 feet in length. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but I'm new here at Amazing Top 10. So if you're enjoying the video so far and wouldn't mind seeing this face more often, you can support the channel, and me by extension, by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing Top 10, and ringing that notification bell. It helps us out a lot, and I personally would really appreciate it. Number 9, caught on satellite. Thanks to satellite technology, we've managed to map out 100% of the ocean floor, despite only having actually explored less than 5% of it. I say we as if I were involved personally. I'm like the nerdy equivalent of a sports fan. Anyways, aerial imagery has allowed scientists to make all sorts of discoveries. So is it that surprising for a behemoth as big as the Megalodon to turn up on something like Google Earth? And as a matter of fact, there was a Megalodon candidate spotted through satellites swimming along the Persian Gulf, which is a Mediterranean Sea in Western Asia, which is essentially an extension of the Indian Ocean between the Arabian Peninsula and Iran. One second, let me just add those to the list of places I will never go swimming. Discovered via Google Earth satellite imagery by researchers from the University of British Columbia, the consensus today is that this shark is between 50 and 70 feet in length. However, the initial calculations gave an estimated range of 80 to 100 feet. Now, it's tough to say what kind of shark this is exactly, as we only have a single image to go off of, but the shape and scale definitely fit the bill, along with the fact that the Megalodon was known to have existed in any ocean environment except for the polar ones, with the vast majority of Megalodons Megalodon fossils having been discovered in coastal areas and bordering most oceans. Well, I guess I'll be swimming with the penguins from now on. At number 8 is the Brazilian coastline footage. In November of 2012, footage was released from the perspective of a rescue helicopter off the coastline of Brazil. And while the team conducting the rescue were oblivious at the time, technicians reviewing the video after the fact discovered that the team wasn't alone in the ocean that day. If you look carefully in the upper right hand corner of the video as it progresses, you'll notice an absolutely enormous shadow of an uncannily shark-like silhouette moving at an incredible speed below the surface of the ocean. And though it's hard to say for certain, we can use the lifeboat in the video as a reference to deduce that the shark depicted here is at least 60 feet long. At number 7 is the drone footage. Now while this video isn't associated with any particular reputable research institute or anything like that, it's certainly among the most impressive Megalodon videos I've ever seen on account of the sheer size, clarity of the thing depicted. The video begins with a bird's eye view of a group of 3 children with boogie boards swimming in the ocean. Remember boogie boards? I still have mine. Not that I'll ever be using it again. So the kid on the orange boogie board furthest to the right notices the shadow of something enormous swimming beneath them. The video replays, giving us a wider zoomed out perspective where the absolutely gargantuan shark is revealed in full. Using the boogie boards as reference, it's estimated that this Goliath clocks in at roughly 95 feet long. And if that's truly the case, then this sighting quite possibly depicts evidence of the largest shark ever discovered. Yeah, no, absolutely not. No, thank you. Now, some have tried to call this thing a basking shark or a whale shark on account of its size, but you don't need a degree in marine biology to rule those out. Whale sharks are coated in distinct white spots, whereas basking sharks distinguish themselves with their wide heads, something that whale sharks are also known for. But this shark here ain't got no spots, and its head shape is more in line with that of a great white. So what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. At number 6 is the Mexican black demon. There's a tale that beckons us from the waters of the Sea of Cortez, a realm nestled between the Baja California Peninsula and Mexico's mainland. It's a place where reality blurs with the unknown, as this area is home to some of the strangest and most diverse range of aquatic giants. Welcome to the domain of the Mexican black demon, a name that sends shivers down to the spines of even the most weathered seafarers. Picture this, a creature reminiscent of the iconic great white shark, yet draped in an unsettling shroud of murky hues, as if the darkness of the abyss itself has taken form. Now don't get me wrong, we all know that great whites aren't exactly teddy bears, but the black demon takes it up a notch. Local legends have whispered for years, painting a portrait of a colossal menace lurking beneath the waves. Reporters suggest that it's longer than your average blue whale, stretching up to a staggering 80 feet. Some eager minds point to the possibility of an undiscovered species, or perhaps an oversized great white. Now, I'm a YouTuber, not a marine biologist, so take this with a grain of salt, but given that great whites and megalodons are closely related, choose to say that it ain't a bit of both. Brave souls have embarked on quests to unravel the secrets of this aquatic enigma, but like grains of sand slipping through your fingers, the black demon remains elusive. Sightings are rarer than winning a lottery ticket, leaving us tantalizingly close to the edge of discovery, yet frustratingly distant from grasping its true nature. Could it be a relic of prehistoric times, a survivor from a forgotten epoch, or perhaps a brand new chapter in the oceanic saga of evolution? At number 5 is the New Zealand cave dive. New Zealand too? Come on, man. So this alleged megalith of a shark was discovered in a diving cave off the coast of New Zealand. Now, sharks in diving caves are terrifying in their own right, but finding a shark inside of a diving cave? But this ain't just any run-of-the-mill cave-dwelling shark, as the recovered photo depicts what looks to be an insanely massive shark with the vast majority of its body extending beyond the frame. Now, admittedly, it's a bit hard to see how any shark, let alone a freaking megalodon, could fit within the confines of a dive cave. At number 4 is the Coelacanth. For those of you who still doubt the modern existence of a sea creature said to have gone extinct millions of years ago, allow me to introduce you to the Coelacanth. This unique bottom-dwelling fish with lengths reaching upwards of 6 feet and weights exceeding 200 pounds belonged to an ancient lineage dating back to 360 million years ago. Boasting an impressive size and a lifespan comparable to that of a megalodon, at least 60 years, this enormous fish was thought to have gone extinct over 65 million years ago, and yet it was discovered alive and well as early as 1938. So given the sheer scale of the ocean, along with the fact that Megalodon was thought to have gone extinct much more recently, only 3.5 million years ago compared to 65, it may only be a matter of time before the Megalodon is rediscovered in the modern age. One can only hope not. At number 3, the Megalodon attack in Cape Town rips a boat in half. Alright, I'll be honest with you. Admittedly, the next 3 entries are a bit of a cop-out, but they're super intriguing nonetheless. You see, during Shark Week, the Discovery Channel decided to air a mockumentary series about the definitive existence of the Megalodon in the modern age, titled The Monster Shark Lives. But the Discovery Channel failed to include any sort of disclaimer that what was depicted in the film was actually all fake. As a matter of fact, the Discovery Channel casted actors as professionals in marine biology, and all the events in the film were presented as actually being real, leading this quote-unquote educational show to becoming the most viewed Shark Week show to date, generating countless clips that would go on to be perceived as factual to this very day. One such clip depicts the found footage of passengers on a fishing boat, and after some time, a thunderous boom can be heard, followed by the sounds of muffled screams and rushing water, accompanied by imagery of the boat being flooded as it flips upside down. The initial story was that a whale had breached over the top of the boat. Upon further investigation of the wreckage by a diving team, they discovered that the boat had been chomped in half. There were no survivors, and the bodies of the fishermen were never found. Well, I'm sure the actors are fine. At number 2, a whale is bitten in half. Our second clip from the Monster Shark Lives docuseries opens with the paid actor, marine biologist Colin Drake, going after some handheld video footage that looks really HD for a homemade movie shot in 2009. As the father and son enjoy some fishing off the coast, they spot what looks to be the remains of a beached whale, only the entire lower half of the whale appears to have been bitten clean off. Well, imagine a battle of the titans, a colossal whale grappling with the behemoth of a megalodon. A battle of epic proportions, a dance of primal forces that leaves us on the edges of our seats, but alas, this tale took a somber turn. In this watery arena, victory belongs to the Megalodon. Its massive jaws close around the portion of the whale's tail, a painful reminder of the harsh reality of nature's unforgiving hierarchy. And at number 1 is the oil rig video. Sometimes the most unexpected observers can uncover the most remarkable secrets. You might think that the vast expanse of the ocean is constantly under surveillance by the vigilant gaze of scientists, government officials, and marine experts, right? Well, in this case, according to what I already described as the very reputable Discovery Channel, it was actually an 8-year-old prodigy from Chile who discovered something truly out of the ordinary beneath the waves. Now for context, let's quickly go over ocean surveillance. You see, scientists and government agencies have studied the ocean floor with high-tech cameras at key locations, giving us a glimpse into the mysterious world beneath the surface. We're talking about a network of underwater cameras nestled around scientific sites and oil rigs, some of which have live feeds accessible to anyone with a curious itch. So back to our young Chilean protagonist. This sharp-eyed kid was casually monitoring one of these live feeds when he suddenly stumbled upon a sight that sent shivers down marine expert spines. Behold, a shadowy fin of disastrous proportions cutting through the water with an almost prehistoric elegance. Now the experts, being the skeptics that they are, were quick to assert that there's currently no concrete proof of the legendary Megalodon prowling our modern day oceans. Yet the fin they encountered on camera was massive. Cue the synchronized video feeds and the math wizards doing their thing. By comparing angles and distances, they sized up this enigmatic creature, revealing an astonishing estimation, a staggering 62 feet in length, give or take. Now that's longer than a school bus, my friends. Now it's just too bad that this sighting was confirmed exclusively by the scientists at the Discovery Channel.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the first discoveries. To start off with, we are taking it back to the Renaissance era. According to accounts from the time, there were discoveries of huge triangular fossilized teeth, but at the time these teeth were so big and they had no idea who or what they belonged to. Instead, people of the time thought that they were petrified tongues or shed teeth that belonged to snakes and dragons. I mean, with the size of these teeth, I truly do not blame people for thinking that they were proof of the existence of dragons. It wasn't until 1667 when the Danish naturalist Nicolaus Steno recognized them as the teeth of sharks, and it was then that he described his finding in the book, The Head of a Shark Dissected, which also contained an illustration of the tooth. In our number 9 spot today, we have the feeding habits. While it's hard to learn much about the habits of a creature that has been extinct for as long as the Megalodon has, there are different and really interesting clues we can use to determine some of the things that were once a complete mystery to us, and one of those things has to do with their feeding habits. Of course, a creature that is slated to be as large as the Meg is going to need a lot of fuel. It's gonna need a big meal, and what better large meal lives in the ocean than a whale? That's right, one of our current largest creatures was a Megalodon delicacy. You may be wondering how we were able to figure this out, and that relates back to the finding of fossilized whale bones. These bones have been found with cut marks from Megalodon teeth etched into their surface. It is said that some of these bones even have nastier wounds, with the shark teeth actually still stuck in them from millions of years ago. Talk about an apex predator. In our number 8 spot today we have the bite force. One thing scientists have been able to estimate about the Megalodon is what they think might have been the force that they could bite down with. So to set the stage, we of course need something to go on, unless you're already an expert in bite forces. Humans, our bite force is measured to be around 1,317 newtons. That doesn't seem too bad. Next, a great white shark, which seems to be quite the predator here currently on Earth. Their bite force is measured at about 18,216 newtons. That's definitely quite a jump from us as humans, but it makes sense. I mean, a great white can definitely do a lot of damage should it choose to. So now we have the Megalodon, one of the most powerful predators to have ever existed, the apex predator. Scientists estimate their bite force was between 108,514 to 182,201 newtons. A reminder that ours isn't even 1,500. It's discoveries like these that really put into perspective just how large and powerful this prehistoric creature really was. In our number 7 spot today we have so many teeth. So most of the discoveries relating to fossils of megalodons that have been found are just teeth. There's so many teeth, and so little of really anything else that has been found. And that of course begs the question as to why? Well, apparently part of this is because sharks continuously produce teeth throughout their entire lives, and depending on what they eat, they often lose their teeth. Like, apparently it's so common that they go through thousands of teeth in their lifetime. Maybe I'm new to the shark game, but I had no idea. But of course this means that shark teeth are constantly raining down to the sea floor, only to later be discovered, and in the case of megalodons, only to become a fossil first. The other half of why the teeth are so common is because teeth are the hardest part of a shark's skeleton. Sharks' bodies are made from a softer cartilage rather than bone, sort of like the stuff that our nose and ears are made of. This means that the chances of these things surviving all of these millions of years are slim to none. In our number 6 spot today we have a fossil. Like I mentioned previously, it's hard to find any remains or fossils of megalodons other than teeth. Most of these remains have been lost to time, but that is exactly what makes this discovery so fascinating. A fossil found in Peru a few years ago is said to not only have been the discovery of a full set of teeth, but also a brain case and a small string of vertebrae, which is a very rare find. Aside from just being a relic from a time long past, this fossil could give us immeasurable insights into what these creatures looked like, more so than we know now, and it may even be able to uncover some of the secrets that remain hidden in the past. In our number 5 spot today we have their appearance. From when the existence of megalodons was first discovered up until quite recently, people believed that these sharks looked basically like a ginormous great white shark. Like most of us have seen Jaws, think of that shark. Or the 2018 classic The Meg. That's what people assumed they looked like. Turns out, based on what we now know, that's really not the case. These sharks would have had a much shorter nose than a great white, like a sort of flattened and squished one. It also would have had longer, like extra long pectoral fins, because when you're that big, you need all of the support you can get to navigate through the water. We thought that megalodons would look like great whites because we thought that they were related, but as it turns out, that isn't true. Megalodons actually come from a different lineage of sharks, and sadly, they were the last member of the lineage. In our number 4 spot today we have ancestors. Speaking of the life and lineage of megalodons, let's take a look back at what we know about their ancestors. The oldest definitive ancestor of the Meg is a 55 million year old shark called Otodus obliquus. These sharks grew to be about 9 meters or 30 feet long. This of course isn't where things stop though. The evolutionary history of this shark goes back to another ancestor called Cretalamna, which lived about 105 million years ago. This means that the lineage of the megalodon spans over 100 million years. That's wild. This is part of how they found out that megs and great whites weren't actually as closely related as once thought. Through more fossils that have been found, they've been able to trace this lineage, and in fact it is now believed that ancestors of great white sharks and the Megalodon probably lived at the same time, and they were likely in competition with each other. Safe to say it would have been a pretty terrifying time to live in the ocean. In our number 3 spot today we have a Cosmopolitan. One of the things that helps us to know that the Megalodon existed relates back to how widespread they once were on Earth. It is said that this species was adapted to warm tropical and subtropical waters, but that means that they could be found basically on every continent except Antarctica, and we have found the teeth to prove it. Apparently the places where most have been found include the east coast of North America, and definitely in the bottom of saltwater creeks and rivers in places like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. They are also said to be a common find for divers off of the coast of Morocco and in certain parts of Australia. They're even sometimes found in the UK, but this is definitely more of a rare sighting there. This is all to say that this proves to us that this was a species that was clearly thriving during their time here on Earth. It can be hard to imagine these prehistoric creatures, but in the history of our planet, they really aren't that long gone. In our number 2 spot today we have rings. One of the best preserved and most complete Megalodon fossils or specimens finds its home in the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences Conservatories in Brussels. This includes a collection of 150 vertebrae that were found in the 19th century Antwerp, Belgium. When they were discovered, they weren't completely strung together, but they were found in the same layer of rock in the same location, which would make it fair to deduce that they likely came from the same animal. Using 3 of these vertebrae, researchers were able to find out the age and roughly the size of the shark when it passed away millions of years ago. They were able to do this because apparently on shark vertebrae they have sort of rings, like trees do. Like you can count the rings of a tree, and you can apparently do that for a shark as well, which will give you an estimate on their age. On this specific specimen they counted 46 circles in the vertebrae, which put the shark at roughly 46 years of age. This would have been quite young for a Megalodon since they are said to have lived to be about 88 to 100 years old. Having this age estimate allowed them to also estimate the potential size of this Megalodon, which they said was around 9.2 meters or roughly 30 feet. In our number 1 spot today we have Bye Bye Megalodon. To cap off this list today, it only seems fair that we talk about what happened to the Megalodon. If they were these huge, powerful apex predators, how did they die off, especially when other shark species have seemed to survive? We know that the Megalodon was extinct by the Pliocene, which was 2.6 million years ago, and was when the Earth entered a phase of cooling. We of course can't know exactly the moment the last Megalodon died, but right now it is believed that it may have been about 3.6 million years ago. The cooling of the planet is likely the biggest contributor to the demise of the Meg. I mentioned before that they preferred warm tropical waters, and a drop in those temperatures would totally throw off the habitat that they once called home. This significant habitat loss, coupled with the likelihood of their favorite prey either also going extinct or adapting to cooler waters and moving where the sharks couldn't go, truly is a recipe for disaster for the good old Megalodon. Another big contributing factor relates to when they gave birth, which is thought to have happened close to the shore, which would provide a cozy, shallow nursery for their young that was free from predators like large whales. This is all fine and dandy until ice begins to form at the poles and the sea levels dropped, which means that the safe place where they once went to have their pups was now destroyed as well. Scientists believe that up to a third of large marine animals, which includes 43% of turtles and 35% of seabirds, became extinct as a result of the cooling temperatures seen millions of years ago. This affected and significantly dropped the number of organisms at the bottom of the food chain, which ends up being a huge problem for our giant apex predators.
Starting off this countdown in no order, we have the Mosasaurus. This sea creature was alive back during the Cretaceous period, which was 145 to 65 million years ago. It was a massive aquatic lizard that grew to around 58 to 59 feet. In fact, they were at the top of the food chain, eating everything beneath them. This included sharks, reptiles, and even other Mosasaurus. Yes, they feasted on their own kind. Fossilized remains of this beast were first discovered in the 1700s in the Netherlands. From there, they learned that it inhabited the Atlantic Ocean and adjacent seaways. Fossils have been discovered all around the world though, in North America, South America, Africa, Western Asia, and Antarctica. In our 9th spot today we have Leviathan. Now this dude was in direct competition with the Megalodon. They were around 57 feet in length and weighed around 100,000 pounds. So yeah, they were pretty hefty guys. Not only that, but they had incredibly large teeth. Their teeth reached over a foot in length. This earned them the title of having the largest known biting teeth of any animal. But they died out between 3.6 and 2.6 million years ago. Just like the Meg, these creatures struggled to adapt to climate change, and they suffered losing their primary prey, which was small to medium-sized whales. If this creature was still around today, I couldn't imagine what the ocean would be like. You'd never catch me swimming in it, that's for sure. In our 8th spot today we have the Giant Oarfish. The oarfish is the world's longest bony fish. They can be up to 56 feet, which is 17 meters in length, and they can weigh about 600 pounds, which is 270 kilograms. They also look pretty weird, like they look like a cross between an eel and a fish, but they have bright silvery skin with bright red spikes running down its back. Back in the 1860s, two men were gathering seaweed on the coast of Bermuda when this creature washed up on the rocks. They immediately got scared and thought it was a nasty sea serpent, so they killed it. Later, it was discovered to only be an oarfish. In our 7th spot, we have ichthyosaur. Between 1976 and 1990, scientists unearthed the largest ichthyosaur tooth ever found. The width of this tooth root was twice as large as any aquatic reptile known. It had a diameter of 60 millimeters, which is 2.4 inches. This makes it the thickest ichthyosaur tooth found so far. Then in 2018, paleontologists discovered a 3-foot jaw segment that belonged to this creature. Then they started to piece together the fossil fragments of this creature and concluded that this animal could have grown to 85 feet in size, bigger than they originally thought this creature was. Now, these creatures were interesting. They roamed the oceans about 200 million years ago and had body shapes kind of similar to dolphins. It's said that they vanished about 25 million years before the mass extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs. In our 6th spot today we have the Shastasaurus. Now this is the biggest known ichthyosaur. In fact, to this day, this creature is the largest marine reptile that has yet been found. Now I say yet to be found because the oceans are massive, okay? Who knows what else is out there lurking that we haven't discovered yet? There's still so much to be discovered. Anyways, turns out that these bad boys lived in Canada. Woo, my home country. And they were about 69 feet in length or 21 meters. But some researchers have proposed that they were even bigger, and that's based on their partial fossils. So we really don't know their true size. I mean, it's said that the modern blue whale was the largest animal that ever lived, but paleontologists believe that these guys were even bigger based on their fossil records. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the whale shark. Now don't be fooled, okay? This isn't a mix between a whale and a shark. It's not a whale-shark hybrid. It's not even a whale, okay? But it is a shark. The only reason it's called a whale shark is because of its size. It currently holds many records for size in the animal kingdom. It is one of the largest sharks and largest living non-mammalian creature. And it's been around for at least 28 million years. It is said to be 65 feet in length and it weighs about 75,000 pounds. Now, when you think of sharks, you might think that they love to eat fish, you know? And that when they get a whiff of blood, they'll go crazy. Well, whale sharks aren't even like that at all. In fact, they're filter feeders, meaning that they eat plankton, fish eggs, and kill decaying plants, all that kind of stuff. So these sharks are pretty harmless. In fact, since it is a filter feeder, it has the ability to sift through over 1,500 gallons of water in an hour as part of its feeding ritual. In our 4th spot today, we have Leadsichthys. The Leadsichthys lived in the oceans during the Middle Jurassic period. It was all over the place in size. It could grow anywhere from 30 feet to 100 feet. So that's a pretty drastic size difference. But to this day, it is considered the largest ray-finned fish to ever swim on Earth. In fact, they were named after paleontologist Alfred Nicholson Leeds, who made important finds of the remains in 1889. Now, these dudes are pretty weird looking creatures. They look like an old whale mixed with a fish, like it's really strange. They also have long pectoral fins and a tall tail fin, and although they look big and bad, they mainly eat zooplankton. In our third spot today, we have Basilosaurus. The Basilosaurus, whose name literally means king lizard, lived around 41.3 to 33.9 million years ago. At first, they thought it was a reptile, but after scientists studied it more, they realized that it was indeed a marine mammal. So its name is very misleading because it's actually a whale, but it's weird, like it has a long eel-like body. It also has huge rows of teeth and it chewed its food, whereas whales kind of just swallow stuff whole. It was at the top of the food chain, so it likely fed on sharks and large fish among other marine mammals. This guy measures up to be about 49 to 66 feet in length, and that's 15 to 20 meters. In our second spot, we have the fin whale. The fin whale is said to be the second largest animal to ever live in the entire history of Earth. It was about 85 feet in length, which is 26 meters, and weighed about 80 tons. But even though they are massive, they are not predatory. In fact, they are totally harmless to people. They are filter feeders, so they eat like tiny krill and stuff like that. Like other whales, these had a white underside with a dark backside. They also live all around the world. They live in every ocean except parts of the Arctic where it's just covered in ice, and they can travel great distances while munching on relatively little food. As a result, they can live for nearly 150 years. And in our number one spot today, we have the blue whales. Now, it seems hard to believe, but blue whales are significantly larger than megalodons. The largest blue whale weighed about 418,000 pounds, which is more than 200 tons. Average blue whales, on the other hand, weigh a bit more than 100 tons, whereas the megalodon weighed only 50 tons. So they got nothing on the blue whales. Not only that, but even blue whale dwarfs reached 110 feet, which is 34 meters, and weighed about 200 tons. That's more than twice the size of the largest meg. Isn't that crazy? But the meg and the blue whale never met. The earliest fossils of blue whales date back to roughly 1.5 million years ago. That's about a million years after the megalodon is believed to have been around. Alright.
At number 10. Originally, when the Basilosaurus fossils were discovered in the 1830s, it was believed that this animal was some sort of reptilian sea monster. So that's why they were named the Basilosaurus, which literally means king of lizards. However, it was later revealed that these creatures are not reptilian at all. They are actually gigantic ancient whales. But unlike the whales we have today, the Basilosaurus was sleek like an eel, and they measured up to 65 feet long. Despite its long size, the Basilosaurus had very small flippers and a short head compared to the rest of its body. It is believed that they most likely ate whales and fish that are smaller, but other predators would not dare bother to compete for food against this beast. Tanystropheus jumps into this list at number 9. The Tanystropheus lived in shallow waters, but it was also believed to live and hunt on the land. They were not very fast swimmers, so they would often walk along the shores and use their long necks to get within range of prey without being detected. Similarly to lizards that we have alive today, the Tanystropheus had a tail that could detach if a predator managed to latch onto it, and it would be able to regenerate. Their teeth was also very unusual. The front teeth were similar to a rake, and the back teeth were flattened like molars. They mainly ate fish and other small aquatic animals, but they're able to reach into bushes and trees with their extremely long necks. Let's take a look at a reconstruction of what these beasts look like if they were alive today.
Great long neck, great long tail, there's hardly any body at all. That long neck is perfect for an ambush predator.
If these things still existed today, you would never find me swimming in the ocean, now that's for sure. Up next, number 8, we have another terrifying creature that goes by the name of Leoplorodon. This scary looking creature lived about 160 million years ago, and this was during the Middle Jurassic period. Just looking at some of these pictures, you were able to tell that these creatures were very ferocious reptiles. They were approximately 30 feet long and weighed in at about 2.5 5 tons, but it wasn't their size that made these reptiles dangerous. They had a 5-foot long skull that was filled with razor sharp teeth that were designed to easily tear through flesh, muscle, and even bones. According to paleontologists, the Leoplorodon had a directional sense of smell, so they made for excellent hunters, and because of the position of their flippers, they were also very fast in the water. I'm just so glad we don't have to worry about running into these ferocious looking beasts. And now at the number 7 spot, we're talking about the Jacalopterus rene, or otherwise known as the giant sea scorpion. So if any of you are scared of creepy crawlers, you probably aren't going to like this creature. And that's because when scientists discovered its giant fossilized claw, they were able to assume that when it was alive, this giant sea scorpion would measure about 2.5 meters long, which is much taller than the height of an average man. Paleontologists believe that this creature existed on Earth when oxygen levels in the atmosphere was much higher than it is today. So due to these elevated oxygen levels, scientists say that this was the reason behind their enlarged bodies. And perhaps many other huge invertebrates existed during the same time, such as monster millipedes. There was also huge cockroaches and ginormous dragonflies. I would never want to live in a world where a cockroach is the size of my foot. I don't think I'd be able to go about my day knowing that these creatures are there. Next up, number 6, we have the whale that ate other whales. We're talking about Leviathan Whale. This evil looking beast was a prehistoric whale that lived approximately 13 million years ago during the Miocene period. Based on its fossils, scientists were able to predict that this whale was approximately 50 feet long and it weighed about 50 tons or about 100,000 pounds. Oh, and did I mention that this beast also had teeth that were 14 inches long? So that means that this beast weighed 6 times more than an elephant and its teeth were even longer than a saber-toothed tiger. But what makes this animal so interesting is, unlike other whales, the Leviathan didn't feast on plankton, it ate meat. Actually, paleontologists believe that they ate seals, dolphins, and maybe even other whales. Is this real life right now? Not only was this whale massive, he was the whale version of Hannibal Lecter. Dacosaurus swims onto our list at number 5. Prepare yourselves for this one because the Dacosaurus isn't a pretty sight. Actually, they were pretty terrifying looking creatures. Their name literally means tearing lizard, and even though they were similar to a saltwater crocodile, they aren't any less ferocious. Scientists believe that these creatures were approximately 15 feet long and weighed in about 2,000 pounds. Not only did they look like a strange mix between a crocodile and a dinosaur, they had a powerful jaw and serrated sharp teeth that they used to tear flesh off a large marine reptile. The scientists who discovered its skull gave this creature the nickname Godzilla because of its unusual snout, which were short and deep and extremely long serrated teeth. It is believed that they had a very powerful bite force and they were likely a top predator during its time. The Giant Stingray makes us cringe in at number 4. This haunting creature can grow up to 17 feet across, and it has a 10-foot poison spike in its tail. They're also known to pull boats up and down river and even underwater. Oh, and I didn't mention that these giant prehistoric stingrays are still alive today. Yeah, that's right. If you're not thrilled about meeting one of these gigantic stingrays, then I would avoid traveling to Mekong River and Australia. Scientists estimate that these creatures can grow up to 5 meters in length and weigh 600 kilograms. And even though stingrays don't normally attack humans, they pose a real danger to those who decide to handle them. I guess we all know that's true when we think about Steve Irwin. And that's because they have a deadly barb that can easily penetrate human skin and even bone, and once you are penetrated with their poisonous barb, they will most likely inject their poison. Haunting us in at number 3, we have a prehistoric ghost shark, and we call it the Helicorpion. This deadly looking shark is believed to have been about 30 to 40 feet long, which makes this beast roughly double the size of the largest great white shark currently on record. The Helicorpion is mostly known for being the world's only animal with a complete 360-degree spiral of teeth. Actually, the purpose and placement of their teeth have been up for debate for more than a century, and it still remains a mystery today. But one thing that is for sure, you definitely wouldn't want to see this bizarre shark swimming straight for you. But thankfully for us, they weren't meant to eat creatures with bones, and they went extinct 230 million years ago. Whew. Well, here's a video that shows you the sinister looking animals that they have hunted. Crunching down in this list, at number 2 we have the Kronosaurus. These beastly looking creatures lived approximately 125 years ago during the early Cretaceous period. And as you can probably tell by these pictures, I wouldn't exactly call these creatures cute. Actually, they look pretty terrifying. They were about 33 feet long and weighed about 10 tons. It had a short snout and tons of teeth with a powerful jaw. Their teeth aren't the sharpest when compared to other marine animals, but that didn't stop them from brutally killing their prey. That's because they would bite onto their prey, they would shake them to death, and then crush their skull with their powerful jaws. Their fossils have only been found in Australia and Colombia, but that's because of the extreme distance between these two countries. Scientists have speculated that the Kronosaurus could have been found worldwide. And finally, chomping into our number 1 spot, we have the infamous Megalodon. The Megalodon has the honor of being the largest known predator in the history of Earth. This beast can grow up to lengths of 60 to 70 feet and weigh 50 to 80 tons. To put that into perspective for you guys, the largest great white shark measured in at about 21 feet and weighed 3.5 tons, so a little guy in comparison. So if one of your biggest fears is a great white shark, I guess you're happy to know that these sinister beasts are extinct and you won't find them creeping underneath your boat anytime soon. But then again, there are skeptics out there that believe that the Megalodon shark is living at the deepest part of our oceans. And considering that our oceans are only 5% explored, maybe this theory isn't, that far-fetched. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys all in the next one.
It's about fast food toys that almost ruined lives back in the day. These toys were just straight up not safe for kids to play with, and we're going to break them all down for you today. See you in the next video.